Hey there, welcome to this special presentation and report, Parallel Economies and the Power of the Nation State, how precious metals, NFTs, crypto, blockchain, and secure communications become your superpower. This special presentation and report is empowered by Sherloc. So many of our friends have come to us over the last couple of months asking questions. As Sherloc is a research and technology company, which we'll discuss in just a moment, our friends were naturally curious. What's going on in the world? What do I need to be prepared for? Guys, what's coming? Please help me. And that really spurred this presentation. What does the future hold? What do we see coming? And how can you prepare yourself to not just survive through whatever happens, but also to thrive? Before we start this presentation, keep in mind that the majority of wealth built in the history of human beings has happened during a downturn, not an upswing. So there's certainly hope. Let's go ahead and get started here. We'll start off with an official disclaimer. This presentation is for informational and educational purposes only. It should not be considered legal, financial, or any other advice. And please consult a relevant professional for more information on anything that you see or hear during this presentation. Okay, for my incredible business partner, Juliana Ormond, my name is R.C. Williams. We run a technology and research company called Sherloc, and we help clients to make sure that they're maximizing the use of their resources in the best way possible. And we do that in three key areas that I'll get to in just a moment. We are also co-founders of an economic and business resource hub called the Lab Orlando. Our offices are located in the historic Paramore district of Orlando, which is also, unfortunately, historically underserved. Our primary focus there is to solve last mile problems. On the community side, we're in an opportunity desert. Half of the population lives under the poverty line. There's a lack of hope and direction, and we work to solve that problem. For businesses, Juliana and I have helped hundreds over the last couple of years to launch and scale, and that's also a primary focus of the work that we do at the Lab Orlando. All right, a moment ago, I talked about Sherloc, our technology and market research company. We do focus in three key areas. The first one is market research. In essence, we help you to understand the thing. Once you understand that, that's when we utilize the power of competitive intelligence to help you understand how to make a ton of money based on what you now know, or how to avoid getting hit by the bus, right? We want to make sure that doesn't happen. The other area is in advanced technologies. Some of those you'll see today in the areas of NFTs, non-fungible tokens, cryptocurrency, and blockchain. We also do extensive work with cognitive intelligence, which is utilizing data and connecting the dots in a very unique way that helps us to predict and do more faster. So here's what we're going to cover in our presentation and special report today. We'll talk about why precious metals are so important. That's primarily gold and silver, but you also need to understand other precious metals and how important they are. If you're not familiar with cobalt, it is key in the building and design of a number of really important things that you use every day. The majority of cobalt mines are located on the African continent, and can you guess who owns them all? That would be China. That's why China is dominating when it comes to batteries and other things that are desperately in need. You also need to understand the power of copper. Pipes are copper to keep you from getting lead poisoning. And you always wonder why people are always stripping copper and taking it to the junkyard, because it's inherently valuable and it serves a purpose. The same for silver. Outside of it being a precious metal that you can carry in your pocket as a silver eagle, it has a number of uses, including in the battery in the phone that you may be watching this on. So we'll talk about why precious metals are so important. We'll also talk about why NFTs, crypto, blockchain, and secure communications work and why they're so mission critical. And we'll talk about how all of these things become your superpower. Unlike any other time in human history, the technology exists for us today to level the playing field regardless of what the world throws at us. So you may be asking yourself why you're here today. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. It's because someone really, really cares about you. You'll see why in just a moment. But if someone invited you to this, or you saw a message from Juliana or myself, or you've attended another one of our presentations, and we encouraged you to come to this one, there is a reason why. We care about what happens to you, your family, and your future. So, as I mentioned, this is very serious. Let's take a look at a couple of headlines, and you'll see why. The first one from the Hill, are we witnessing the beginning of de-dollarization? So for years, it had been mumbled that maybe the US dollar wasn't going to be the world reserve currency or wasn't even necessary. That wasn't necessary for that to be the case. Well, now they're saying the quiet part out loud. This is from a somewhat reputable publication where they're just saying it in the headline. Did you know that 70 countries right now don't utilize the US dollar in commerce or trade? As a matter of fact, China and Russia are working directly without a need for the US dollar, and others around the world are taking notice. So as you can see, it's serious business. But it's also somewhat crazy town. If you look at the next headline, by the way, this article is from the Wall Street Journal, another pretty reputable publication, right? Here's the headline, just in case you can't see it. Inflation got you down? At least you don't live in Argentina. So when the situation is so difficult that we have to say, hey, look, it kind of sucks here in the United States, but at least you don't live in Argentina, that gives you an indication on how difficult things are and the tough times that are coming, and again, why you need to be ready. By the way, the subheadline in that piece from the Wall Street Journal, citizens cope with world's second highest rate by hoarding toilet paper, spending paychecks immediately. Okay, and then the quote from someone is, here, 40%, as in 40% inflation is normal. Would you agree that things are serious? I believe so. One more from Fitch Ratings, another reputable research firm. World growth forecasts cut as inflation intensifies due to war. We know there's conflict all over the world, not just in Russia or Ukraine, but now they're saying all the quiet parts out loud. This is serious business. When they're saying the quiet part out loud, you know that trouble's brewing and you need to be ready. So would you agree with the statement on the screen that words matter? I believe so. Let's take a look at an example of a word that matters a lot right now. And then I'm going to blow your mind with an understanding, okay? So I think everyone knows what the word economy means or what you've been led to believe that it means. So the story goes that the word economy is of Greek origin, and in essence, it translates to household management. But what if I told you that's not what the word actually means? What if I told you that the Greeks paid a visit to the Dogon tribe on the African continent in the nation of Mali and took the word and shaped it for their own use? The Dogon tribe had a different meaning for the word. Are you ready for this? Okay, get ready. Here we go. Eco meant ecosystem, the world in which you lived. The Dogon tribe thought bigger than just their own household. They thought about the world as a whole and what their work meant. In essence, an ecosystem, okay? The word nomos, if you go right now and you search for it, you'll most likely be led to Wikipedia, where it says this word loosely translates to law. That is also not the case. Here is what the word actually means from the Dogon tribe. To drink from, allocate, and replenish. Would you still agree that words matter? Probably so. Would you agree that now that you understand the meaning of the word economy, nothing that you see today is there? Okay, I'm going to ask you a question in a couple of slides, and I really want you to think about the last sentence on your screen right now. When I ask it, it's going to become very relevant. All right, so let's dig in. Let's talk about some definitions. What the heck is a parallel economy? You know, that's a great question that we get a lot, so let's go ahead and address that right now. A parallel economy is the natural evolution of free markets, allowing you to work with like minds and shared values, providing you more control over the outcomes. Doesn't that sound a lot better than the economy, quote unquote, that we live in today, where you have no level of control? You're basically at the mercy of crazy people who are printing money insanely and do whatever they want. The power of the parallel economy cannot be understated. So this is what a parallel economy is. I'll give you a moment if you need to take a screenshot or a picture. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. So what the heck is a nation state? Well, I thought an infographic would make a lot of sense here. So let's jump in. A nation state is a combination of three things that work together. A desire for sovereignty meets a unified people with like minds and interests, and there you have a nation state. If you go to Google and you search for nation state right now, you will find a globalist definition that gives this a very negative context. But two things are important to keep in mind here. One, do you see anything negative about these three things working together? Probably not. So keep that in mind. As we mentioned a couple of slides ago, words matter. The second one is that you don't necessarily need to be geographically aligned in order to create a nation state. Thus, a unified people with like minds or interests, as we talked about earlier, when you combine it with the power of technology, you can build nation states along like interests, minds, ideologies, or anything else. They're all over the world today. They may not be mainstream, but they do exist. So when you take the power of the parallel economy and a nation state, you can begin to see not only how important this presentation and special report is, but how important it is you have the knowledge to begin to build or work in other parallel economies. So regardless of what comes, you're in great shape. Okay, let's get into some more technical definitions. We get this all the time, so we want to make sure you understand. What is an NFT? Well, an NFT is a non-fungible token, and I'm going to give you a simple description in just a moment that helps you understand what that is. So a non-fungible token proves ownership and allows for transfer of ownership of a real-world object like art, music, real estate, and more, right? So you may have heard in national news recently that a house sold as a non-fungible token for about $130,000 over asking price. This is the power of an NFT. We'll get to more of that a bit later, but I wanted to make sure you had a definition. Let's take a look at an example. So here we have 8 t-shirts, right? So they're all white t-shirts, but each one of them is unique. So they have a unique serial number or barcode. When you go to buy them at the store, they're each unique, right? So let's say that each one is $25 a piece. So you could buy 4 of them for $100, but each one is unique and $25 a piece, right? That, in essence, is the description of a non-fungible token. It is a one of a kind. You can buy it and sell it for more, which you can do with an NFT, but it is wholly unique, even though they're all white t-shirts. Each one in and of itself is a unique piece of property or a non-fungible token. Okay, now that we've got that definition out of the way, let's talk about another popular one. What the heck is cryptocurrency? Here's your definition. A cryptocurrency is an encrypted data string that denotes a unit of currency. Now that may sound slightly complicated, but I want you to think about something here. If I took the word cryptocurrency and I crossed it out, right, for a moment, and then I want you to think. Now, if you're going to buy something probably in excess of $250 to $500, you're not going to do it today with cash, right? You're going to pull out a credit card or a debit card and go buy, correct? Okay, so think about this for a second. All that credit or debit card is a representation of what they tell you are digital dollars in your bank account. You could have 10,000 in the account tonight, not spend any money, go to bed, wake up, and there's 5,000 in there, right? You would call the bank freaking out saying, hey, what happened to my $10,000? They'd say, congratulations, Mr. Williams. Your currency, quote unquote, is about worth half of what it was yesterday. So congratulations on your $5,000, click, right? So when you think about it, I could cross out a word. It isn't a digital dollar today, an encrypted data string that denotes a unit of currency? Yeah, except in this instance, it's a sad George, right? Because it's so depressed and inflated and it doesn't really do what it used to do, which you'll see here in a second when we get to the history of the dollar. This will make even more sense, but it's really a sad George, right? But here is the power and the difference with cryptocurrency. Unlike physical money, cryptocurrencies are decentralized. That means they're not issued by governments or other financial institutions. Well, guess what happens with cryptocurrency? It is a happy George, right? Do we still agree that words matter? I think so. Notice what you can do when you change words and how powerful they are, or when you insert them into a sentence. You didn't realize how close you are to cryptocurrency right now until we took the word cryptocurrency out and we put in digital dollar or credit card or debit card, now did you? All right, let's do another one. So what the heck is a blockchain? Great question. A blockchain is a verification process. So we'll simplify that even more. At some point in your life, you may have seen one of the pictures, one thing like the picture on the screen here. That is a checkbook ledger. Guess what? A blockchain is a digital version of a checkbook ledger. It keeps track of transactions, and because they're distributed across millions of points around the world, they can't be hacked. That's why you keep hearing that blockchains are in essence unhackable, because they're like a million digital checkbook ledgers that keep track of what's going on. All right, so we covered a lot of descriptions here, right? Let's jump into what's happening today, because I really want to show you where we're at, and then we'll talk about some solutions and some recommendations as well. So what's happening today? Let's take a look at the headlines. Inflation will be worse than feared this year. You know who said that? Take a look. Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs is one of the largest investment firms in the world, right? You guys remember the joke with the people who defuse bombs? They've got their t-shirt and it says on the back, if I'm running, you should try to keep up. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. If one of the world's top investment firms is saying that inflation's going to be worse, I would follow them. Now, notice very closely that they said inflation will be worse. They didn't say could, they didn't say maybe, they said will. Do you still agree that words matter? I believe so. All right, let's keep rolling. So inflation, crazy town is happening today. What you are looking at on your screen is an M1 currency chart. Simply put, it shows the total amount of money held within a country. If you look in the lower left-hand corner, we start in the year 2012. The United States is the bottom line. The world average from other countries is the top line. As we move along, you can see that the United States is actually doing okay until we get to 2020. Then you notice that it looks like a retarded paperclip when you undo a paperclip because you want to reset a button. Notice how we went crazy town? You know what happened there, right? Okay, so that was COVID. Here's the thing that's going to drive you absolutely nuts. And this is something you know inherently, but no one's explained it to you. 80% of all the money in circulation in the United States today was printed on or after December 31st, 2019. Let that sink in for a second. That's why we have a retarded looking paperclip running crazy there. I'll get to the definition of inflation in just a second, but what you see happening here, let's go through what happens, right? So the supply chain, you say, oh, we're having supply chain challenges. Here's what's going on. There isn't necessarily a shortage of things. The challenge is there's no one to get that stuff in. That's why you see giant boats off the West Coast trying to get into the port at Long Beach, which is the busiest in the United States, but there's nobody to get this stuff off the ships. Surprise and congratulations on your supply chain problem. So here's the other thing that happens. The short definition of inflation is when too much money chases too few things. So we got locked up for COVID, right? They started printing money like crazy. Then they just started giving it away to us. Then eventually we get let out, right? So guess what happened? We had a whole bunch of money chasing too few things because our supply chain system wasn't working right. Congratulations on your inflation. The M1 currency chart shows you just how crazy this all is. All right, another one from the headlines. Everybody recognize that human? Okay, so Joe Biden said about a month and a half ago that America is going to lead the New World Order. Now, in essence, the term New World Order is scary in and of itself. That's a whole nother presentation, right? But it's crazy. Here's the other crazy part. Based on what you've just seen, do you believe that America could lead its way out of a wet paper bag at this point? Probably not, right? Let's do a quick contrast. Here's rich guy over here, right? Billionaire says he's investing in crypto, and he says there's a chance it could be a dominant currency. Would you agree that words matter? Yes. Would you listen to the guy who has taken us on an interesting trip, or the rich guy who says, hey, this is another way to get rich. I'm doing it. And if I'm running, you should probably follow, right? These are headlines. I'm not making any of this up. This is literally in the news today. If you were to Google any of these things, you would find them and the stories associated with them. Okay, I want you to meet Pippa Malmgren. She is a top economist. You'll notice that if you look behind her, she's at the World Government Summit. This was recent. This was at the end of March. Here's what she said. We're about to abandon traditional money and replace it with digital blockchain. We talked about words matter, right? Here's a top economist telling you that the future is a digital dollar, fully digital, or a Fed coin. I'll get to that in a second. But first, here is what Pippa Malmgren said at this conference, and I quote, "We are on the brink of a dramatic change. We are about to abandon the traditional system of money and replace it with a new one, digital blockchain CBDC, that's central bank digital currency, friends, which will give us greater clarity over every single transaction." About a month and a half ago, executive order from the Biden administration on cryptocurrency. That was the official announcement of the Fed coin. Here's what's going to happen, friends. This thing is going to be marketed to you as the greatest thing ever. Then you're going to come to the fork in the road and have a choice, okay? For the dollars that you hold today, they're going to transition over regardless. You have no control over that. Your dollars will become Fed coin. They'll tell you it's more stable, the whole thing, right? For the assets that you don't hold in dollars, they may say to you, hey, you own Bitcoin. Congratulations, you got 100 of them. They trade around $42,000 or so at the time that we're doing this presentation, right? So let's say the Fed tells you they'll give you 75,000 of Bitcoin. You say, well, look, that's a great come up. That's a great profit on it. Here's what happened, friends. If you go that direction, you have now entered what will ultimately be a United States social credit system. If you're not familiar with this, I urge you to take a look at China. China is a totalitarian state that has long worked on their social credit score and system. You cannot buy, sell, move, or do anything else if your social credit score does not make sense. China is also masterful at predicting crime. For those of you who are old enough and you've seen the movie Minority Report with Tom Cruise in 2001, they had precogs, human beings who in essence could predict the future if they worked together. They were predicting you would commit a crime before you actually did it, and they would arrest you before you had a chance to do it. China's doing this now. They know your propensity to cross the street on a red light, and I'll tell you what, if you do it, they may decide, hey, you're in Shanghai, your mom's in Guangzhou, she doesn't feel good. Too bad for you. You were going to cross the street on that red light. Your social credit score is too low to travel more than a mile outside of where you live. Friends, I know this sounds crazy and scary, but look at what's on the screen. If you still agree that words matter, you can see where we're going. I'm not saying be completely off the system. I'm saying be aware at what's happening in the world today and be thinking about what it is that you need to do. So I'm going to ask you a question. I mentioned this a couple of slides ago. Based on everything you've just seen in the last few minutes, do you believe that anything you've heard or seen in the last few slides sounds anything like this? To drink from, allocate, and replenish. No, right? But you see why words matter. If the word economy has been changed and you've been led to believe it's something vastly different than it was intended to be, what other words matter? Keep that in mind as we keep going here. All right, so the economy you know today kind of looks like this. SOS, filling your last S with whatever feels most comfortable to you. Mine is, okay, I'm not going to say it. And then there's a guy hanging off a cliff. So that's you hanging off the cliff of the economy with your briefcase. So you know the difference between the US and China today? In China, above that hand that's hanging off the cliff, there are 10 people stomping on it to get it to fall over. In the United States, there are 2 people walking up to the edge of the cliff to stomp on your hand so that you fall over. Friends, the times are serious. I know that this is funny and it looks like a funny slide, but this isn't a laughing matter. I want to show you just how urgent it is and why we did this report. So there's contrast number 1, right? But you could see in a parallel economy, remember, a parallel economy gives you more control over the outcomes. Imagine the world the opposite, where you have a higher level of control over the outcomes in key areas like finance, technology, precious metals, communication, food and energy, and even places like the lab, a community and business resource hub where people can physically get together and work together to solve problems. I can promise you this before we move on. If you go and look up the parallel economy today, they would have you believe that that is the black market, it is evil, and that's where bad things happen. Okay, fine. They're entitled to their definition, but they're not entitled to their own facts. I can share this with you. The shadow black and gray markets in many countries are more trusted than the government economies. We did a private presentation a couple of weeks ago. There was a gentleman from Kenya that was in the room. We were talking about the influence of money on US politics, and he was shocked that it was happening in the United States. His eyes bugged out and he said, I didn't realize that happened here. In Kenya, it's just open. And I said, well, we're a bit more subtle here in the US, but it's coming, right? It's just more out in the open now. So they would have you to believe, right, that the parallel economy is a negative. But what this gentleman said, he said, no, the government is so corrupt that people will work on parallel economies like trade and barter systems or cryptocurrencies because transactions are more trusted peer-to-peer. That means you and I believe we can do a better job. I have something to sell, you want to buy it, than the government being involved, especially if they're corrupt. Remember, words matter. And look at the contrast if you take that into account between the economy you know today and the economy you could know if you decided to work within parallel economies. Okay, so let's talk about some solutions, right? We're going to talk about what people need and why they need it in the three key areas that we mentioned at the beginning of this presentation: precious metals, NFTs, blockchain, and crypto, and also in secure communications. I can tell you, friends, by the time we get to the secure communications portion, your mind will be blown. But when you see what level we're at right now, you're going to see why it's so important that we make these moves. All right, so let's get to it. Building the foundation with the power of precious metals. So what we did in each segment is we went out and asked people a simple question. In the area of precious metals, gold, silver, stuff like that, what do you need? Simple question. I'll show you what we got back, then I'll show you why it's so important. All right, so here's what people told us that they needed. They needed easy, consistent access to gold and silver. Believe it or not, that's difficult today. And if you go around, whether it is to a pawn shop or a coin shop, or you buy online, you're finding more and more gold and silver out of stock, right? Or you're in a place where it's even more insidious, which I'll get to in a second. So people also said they wanted it at the best price and they didn't want to have to worry about minimums or maximums. Here's what I mean, and here's why it's so insidious. So you may go to a site and see an awesome deal on gold and silver. So you pop one in your cart, right? Say, I want a coin, whatever, you pop it in, but you notice that you didn't get the discount. When you go into your cart, it says must purchase a minimum of $100,000 to get discount. Okay, pretty insidious, right? People don't like that. People don't like bait and switch, right? You don't like bait and switch, right? This is one of the things that people said that they needed. I wanted at the best price with no minimum or maximum needed to take advantage of any deal that's available. And by the way, we had a friend recently make a pretty big purchase of silver and gold. Everything was going great. They got a good deal. Everything was fine until they got to the thank you page after they paid their money. And it said delivery in 10 to 12 weeks. Yeah, words matter and timing matters, right? People also wanted the ability to build wealth and hedge against inflation. And you'll see here in a moment, that's really what precious metals are. They're a hedge against inflation and instability in currencies and countries around the world. So that's what people needed. Here's why they, there's one more thing. People also wanted the ability to buy, sell, pay, or be paid in gold and silver instantly, which is pretty revolutionary, right? Because you say, listen, the dollar's not having a great day today. I want to be paid in gold and silver because that price is universal around the world. The other one that we've gotten extensively is people want the ability to buy gold and silver with cryptocurrency. So when people make a lot of money in crypto, you luck out, you get into a coin early and then it explodes. Two things happen. You're super excited and then you start freaking out because it's so volatile and you want to get it into something more stable. So people told us unequivocally, I want to be able to buy gold and silver with crypto and I want to be able to do it as quickly as possible. All right. So you wonder why? Well, there's the I word again. Inflation. I mentioned the description of inflation to you, but I'm going to go ahead and put it up here again. Simply put, inflation happens when too much money chases too little product or service. Remember that example and everything that happened to us with COVID? Yeah, that's inflation in a nutshell, right? So let's keep rolling here. Let's take a trip, right? Let's take a look at the purchasing power of the US dollar since 1913. I'll do this quickly for you. Prior to the Federal Reserve, which is the third central bank of the United States being created, you could take a dollar into a bank and say, give me a gold coin. And they give you a gold dollar coin and tell you, Mr. Williams, have a great day. So the Federal Reserve is created in 1913 and a dollar is a dollar. You figure, okay, that's for stability purposes. Yeah, but you notice the chart goes down? Okay, fast forward to 1933, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, he has an executive order. He says, hey, you, Mr. Williams, I'm going to need your gold coins, your bullion, your gold notes, any gold in your teeth. I'm confiscating it all. Okay. Now, at the time, you may be saying, oh, that's got to be to stabilize the country. That's got to be a good thing. But notice the chart keeps going down. Fast forward to 1944, the Bretton Woods Agreement. So these meetings established the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. Hallelujah, right? Here we go. We're the world leader. But notice the chart keeps going down, right? 1971, President Richard Nixon takes the US dollar off the gold standard. Oh boy. So you're thinking to yourself, man, why did Nixon do that? I got to be honest, not entirely his fault. Henry Kissinger, special advisor to the president, went to Saudi Arabia and says, you will only accept payment for oil in US dollars, and in exchange, we will provide you protection. How you doing, right? Then he goes back to President Nixon and says, Mr. President, gold speculators are going to crash the economy. We've got to take the dollar off the gold standard. At that point, Nixon did two things he didn't really want to do. He didn't really want to take us off the gold standard, but he also did not want to interrupt Bonanza on that night because that was a pretty popular show at the time. Nixon did both, took the dollar off the gold standard. By 2013, the dollar in your pocket had the purchasing power of about 5 cents in just 100 years. And as of today, it's just probably under 2 cents. Purchasing power of the US dollar done in just over 100 years. So if you don't believe those things can happen, they've happened before. And if you take a look at this chart for a moment, and then we go to this one, you're going to see some consistencies. Germany, World War I, the mark, you needed a wheelbarrow full of them to buy a loaf of bread. Remember those stories? That was a thing, okay? The exchange rate for the mark at failure was 1 trillion to 1. The peso in Argentina from 75 to 92, it failed, exchange rate at failure, 100 billion to 1. And then the very popular $100 trillion bill from the country of Zimbabwe from 2000 to 2009, their exchange rate ended at 10 billion to 1 on failure. If you don't believe currencies can crash, there are 3 examples for you. And again, I'll go back to this chart. Where's the dollar going? Keep that in mind. All right. Here's some good news. As inflation skyrockets, so does the value of silver and gold. We'll take 2 examples here. The first one's a house, 20-year delta. In 2001, you could have bought one house for 626 ounces of gold, or about $169,000. Fast forward just 20 years to the year 2021, you could buy 3 houses for 579 ounces of gold, or $347,000 each. Do precious metals sound like a pretty good bet? Okay, if gold's a little rich for you, I'll do silver. It's a poor man's gold, right? Let's take something even more simple you do every month, even though it may be painful. That's paying your electric bill. 2001, you could have paid your electric bill for $76 or about 15 ounces of silver. Fast forward just 20 years, in 2021, you would have paid your electric bill for about $119,000 or just 4 ounces of silver. The same amount of silver buys 3 to 4 times as much as it could just 20 years ago. Would you agree words matter? Do you agree that these visuals make sense? This is why precious metals are so important. What's also important is with these tangibles that they're empowered by the proper technology. And in our findings, we really believe we hit the mother lode. So people were asking us, well, is there a wallet like a cryptocurrency wallet for gold and silver? We actually found one, and the technology is called the Sound Money Wallet. I'll get to this more in our recommendations, but your ability to take your cash, buy gold and silver instantly, and also buy it fractionally is available, and you can also utilize cryptocurrency to buy gold and silver instantly. The other one that we found that was great is basically the Kelley Blue Book of coins. So if you're going to buy a car, they always say, what's the Kelley Blue Book value, right? It's super important. We found the equivalent with a technology called stack and sell. So if you've got collectible coins, you can buy, you know they're legitimate, you can stack up and watch the value of your collectibles increase. If you want to buy or sell, there's a third party that verifies it. And then when it's time to sell, you know you're going to get your money, or you know you're going to get your coins. Right? These technologies exist today, and we were super excited in our research to find them. And we'll show you how to get to them towards the end of this presentation in our recommendations. So at this point, you've probably got the normal questions, but what, how, right? Well, I can tell you this, we'll share our recommendations in a moment, but first let's talk a bit of tech. Okay, so in building that foundations, you're going to want to power your parallel economy with NFTs, blockchain, and crypto. And those are your assets, right? So your ability to buy and sell and to make incredible profits, this technology makes it possible for you. You may be thinking at this point, you know nothing about this stuff outside of the description that I gave you earlier in this presentation. But I have to tell you, this technology is insanely powerful and puts you on a whole different level when it comes to assets, acquiring them or selling them. So let's dig into it. When we talk to people, here are the things that they needed. They needed education and understanding. So I could have given you overly technical descriptions of NFTs, crypto, and blockchain, but that wouldn't have helped you very much. Now would it? No. Okay, you needed to understand how they could be tangibly used. I'm going to show you that in just a moment. People also want to know, how is this not a scam? Right? I hear cryptocurrencies, I hear all these scams. Listen, scams happen every day. This technology isn't a scam, but people take advantage of people who don't have point number one, education and understanding, and they take them for a ride. And then people want to know, how do I actually use this stuff? So I'm going to show you in a second. Let's take a look at the challenge and your superpowers. So your superpowers, should you choose to accept them, NFTs, crypto, and blockchain. As I mentioned a minute ago, when you use these things in combination and you understand what they're capable of doing, it will change your life. We'll get to that in a second. So the challenge has been that you see things like bored apes, loaded lions, and pudgy penguins around, right? These are pieces of digital artwork. They don't physically exist, that people are paying for with the hope that they can sell them to you for $1 more than they paid for. So that's the bad news, right? That's been a challenge. This is one of the reasons why you think it's a scam. Here's the crazy part, and here's what's kind of good news for us. The prices for these, $700,000 for a bored ape, $1.5 million for a loaded lion collection, and $500,000 plus for my friend there, the pudgy penguin, right? So that set some precedents on what people were willing to pay, even if it was crazy and speculative. So let's knock this out for a second, and let's take a look at how this should look. So I didn't have your picture in advance of the presentation today, but I believe this is a representation of you. You're a happy stick figure person with a Thai body, but a ton of money in each hand, right? So that's you. These are your assets. And if you utilize your superpowers, I can tell you this, there is a ton of money with crypto millionaires and more beating down doors, trying to get that cryptocurrency into tangible and stable assets. I mentioned earlier in this presentation, a home sold as an NFT in Tampa recently. It sold for $130,000 over asking price in an auction. So what the ladies did is they put the house into an LLC, into a business. They put it on a site called Proppy, and they started a bidding process. They bid it up to $650,000. The house had some debt on it. When the transaction was done, all the terms were in a smart contract attached to the NFT, which was basically a picture of the house. When the transaction closed, the debtor wanted cash. They wanted fiat currency. So transaction takes a couple of minutes, boom, debtor gets their money, boom, seller gets their money in Ethereum. $130,000 over asking price. They cut out all the middlemen, and the house sold to someone outside of the country. So I want you to imagine for a second that you now have the capability for whatever you want to buy or sell, or maybe what you want someone to invest in, you can instantly open to a worldwide audience of people who have more money and time than anything else that just want the thing. That's why it should look like this and not the slide before. These are your superpowers, my friend. I can promise you that. So how does this all work? I'm going to give you the simplest description possible, and I'm going to visualize it for you. So from this point forward, when you think of an NFT, think of the asset and the thing. I'm using a house in this example, right? Cryptocurrency is the money that you use to get the deal done. Good so far? All right. The blockchain manages the process. Friends, that's how it works. I know you've been given super complicated definitions and all these crazy things in the past. We needed you to be educated, but we also needed you to understand. This is how it works. It's not overly complicated. And with these basics, this technology becomes your superpower. All right. I promise you, the recommendations are coming. The recommendations are coming, as Paul Revere would say. We'll get there in just a second, but I want to talk about the third pillar of the foundation. That's powering your parallel economy with secure communications. Okay, so when we talk to people, here's what they needed. Freedom to speak freely. We know censorship is real, right? People also wanted secure peer-to-peer encryption. All that means is that no one that's not supposed to see or hear something can see it. Right? So if you ever see peer-to-peer or the letter P, the number 2 and P, that's peer-to-peer. It just means that it's encrypted, encoded so that no one outside of the people who are supposed to see or hear it can see or hear it. That's it. All right. And then they didn't want any scary algorithms. If we were all together today when you left and you go on Facebook, it would say people that you might know. It's going to be all the people you were around because they're watching you. Okay. Let's take a look here. So you're wondering why? Well, it's pretty obvious. We talked about censorship and control. You don't even know today the thing that could get you either censored or kicked off of a platform or basically eliminate you as being a person or unperson you. This is real, guys, and I'm going to show you the craziest example I could find. This just happened recently. It's going to be hard for you to believe, but here it is. From the headlines, the Daily Mail. Google goes woke. Search engine launches inclusive language function to cut down on politically incorrect words. According to whom? Okay, so here's how it works. And I got to tell you, I hate when Google does this. I got some guy who's lived no real life that's standing at the Googleplex educating me. So here's what it says on the screen. Here's the example they gave. Get approval on budgets from budget committee chairman. Then you get a pop-up that says inclusive language. This indicates gender. If you would like to choose gender inclusive phrasing, consider chair or chairperson. Now, I'm going to venture that you're smart enough to know what it is that you need to do. We don't need a ninny or a nanny telling us that we should be more inclusive. It sounds like censorship and control, right? You know the reason Google knows that? Because they track everything you do in Gmail search and everything else. I'm telling you guys, it's real. All right, let's keep rolling here. Take a breath, okay? I need you to take a deep breath. All right, you guys feel good? Okay, let's keep rolling here. So imagine your own nation state working with like minds to create your own parallel economies, vastly different than what you saw when you have no control, right? You'd have more control over the outcome of business, education, finance, technology, communication, and places like the lab where communities can get together and work together, right? Imagine your own nation state where you can work with like minds in parallel economies. We're building these for people today, and I got to tell you, it's one of the best things to ever happen. So it is entirely possible you can avoid the SOS with you hanging off of a cliff by utilizing the power of technology and precious metals and secure communications. So with that, let's take a look at some recommendations for gold and silver. Our recommendation is 7K metals. They cover all the bases here: easy access, tangibles powered by technology like we showed you, and all the heavy lifting is already done. No minimums, maximums, or anything else like that. If you guys want more information, you can scan this QR code here. It will take you directly to the site. And don't worry if you miss this, there'll be a site at the end where you can check boxes and get all the information that you would want or need on that. But this is who we recommend for precious metals. All right, for NFT, crypto, and blockchain, our recommendation is you utilize the power of Sherloc. As you can see, we make crypto and understanding easy and safe. We can also work with you on directions and action plans for blueprints on how you want to attack crypto, NFTs, and blockchain, and how you can best utilize them. We also do custom research and platform design. If you scan that, it will take you to the site icovermyassets.com, and you can get more information there. All right, one more for secure communication. Our recommendation is the TFN family of products. They are 100% encrypted peer-to-peer. We've done extensive architecture work with TFN.media, TFN Meeting, which is an alternative to Zoom, and TFN Debate, which is a modern town hall. No artificial intelligence runs, and complete freedom of speech. If you want more information, you can get it there with the QR code, or you can go to tfn.media for more information. All right, guys, your next steps, please go to icovermyassets.com. You can use that QR code. And when you get there, fill out the form. We ask for your first name, last name, email address, and phone number. Check the boxes for gold and silver, NFTs, crypto, blockchain, and nation states, or everything I learned today, and then click submit. Give us a couple of days. Someone on the team will be back to you. Okay, icovermyassets.com. Or if you're ready to get started, pop that in the chat and we can talk about next steps. With that, I thank you so much for your time. My name is R.C. Williams with Sherloc and the Lab Orlando. Thank you for attending this special presentation and information session on parallel economies and the power of the nation state. We'll talk to you soon.